Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us, and we'll stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Matt here with Hannah. We've got a website you can use to keep our show links and socials all in one place. Check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We're grateful for all of our listeners. Thank you so much for fitting us into your dishes, your workout, your drive, whatever you're doing. Thank you. You can help us grow this community that is growing by following, rating, and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. We've got the best people in the business.
Yep.
Hannah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm excited to see everyone's Spotify end of the year wraps. I want to know who has us at the top of the list or in the top 3. Honestly, it would be really cool if they shared that with us or posted it on social media. That'd be even better.
That'd be even better if you posted us to your social media. Just get us on there. I'm biased, but I think you should be proud to be a Beyond Sundays listener. What is a wholesome, wonderful experience?
People that love the Lord. I do have to say something, and this is honestly the truth. Have you lost weight? Like, honestly. I promise it's not a segue to anything. I genuinely
no, it's fine. I have dropped about 5 or 6 pounds. Yeah, in the last couple of weeks, I stopped eating. I stopped overeating. Anyway, I was doing a thing with my workouts. I stopped overeating, and I just started eating like the proper amount of food, and some of that weight I was carrying around has come off.
I can see it in your face. Not like you were ever heavy or anything like you never were, but like I can see that.
Well, so speaking of like workout stuff, I did join a gym for the first time in my life, and I've never been like anti-gym or anything like that. I just have always had enough discipline to do what I wanted to do at home pretty well.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes you miss, you know what I mean? But just wanted to mix things up and do something a little bit different. And I'll tell you what, gym lifting is way different than home lifting because of the access to stuff you have. I had one of those days. I did my legs yesterday. I'm sure people are loving this, but I did my legs yesterday. I'm sitting in this chair to podcast with you. I don't know if I'm getting out. So if I'm not at church tonight, like you'll just know I'm just still here. I'll log on to Facebook and I can be with you guys that way. I can make a Christmas card and send it, but I may just be here. I don't know. It hurts so bad.
So I have to say, I've started a workout class, and I am going to brag. I'm just going to brag because I'm going to brag hard here because I've always struggled to get up early. I am getting up right now at 4:40 in the morning, 3 days a week.
Oh, Hannah Piercy.
Yeah, I know.
My gosh, you know what? Let me do that again. Hannah Nicole Piercy.
I know.
That called for the whole thing.
I know. I'm so proud of myself. And it's like this CrossFit. And so it's funny that you say that, though, like how it is so different working out at a gym. First of all, we both know I am not as disciplined as you are. I honestly envy that. Like, you can work out at home. If that's the case for me, it just doesn't ever happen.
This won't work. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
But today we were doing these lifts, and you have to like do these clean things, and
sure.
Either way, it's like it's set up where you have to work up to 20. I forget how hard what's the word that I'm looking for? Like what's it? Cardio. It's like that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Lifting.
CrossFit?
Yeah, it is CrossFit, but it's it's so much cardio. Like, it's a different kind of cardio. You can go run a mile outside, and that's hard. But when you mix it with lifting, it's a whole new ballgame.
Sure. The old heart rate's up in the 160s real fast if you're doing both.
You feel like you're going to pass out.
Yes. But that's burning stuff, I really think.
Oh, my gosh. Let me ask you about Planet Fitness, though.
Yeah.
The time that you go, is it super busy? Oh, am I allowed to? I did say that out loud where you were going.
Planet Fitness. We live in Mount Vernon. What are we going to do? No free ads, but Planet Fitness, get at us. Sponsor the pod.
That's right.
So I've been like 4 days so far, so it's not like I've been months. But no, it's not super busy, but it's like the same crew.
Yeah.
Like I see some of the same people. They're going at the same time. I do have a quick story from day one.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if this is dorky or not. I told my kids at school, and they just made fun of me mercilessly, which is just an awesome self-esteem boost. But I put a lock on my locker when I used it because I walked in there, and I don't have anything in there that's like incredible, but I put my car keys in there, whatever. I trust people, but I saw like 6 locks in the locker room. I didn't think that was weird. So it was a lock I had with a key. All right, so I'm working out and lifting and doing all this stuff. At the end of it, I get on the bike. My AirPods are in my pocket. My phone's in my other pocket. That key, I don't know where it's at. So I
Oh,
retrace to every machine. I check. I start out on a treadmill for 5 minutes just to get going. There was one lady walking backwards on the treadmill. I was like, okay, queen,
now
go
that's
on.
real deal stuff right
So
there.
I'm checking all the treadmills. I probably look like a complete creeper. I'm not trying to. I can't find it. So I got to go to the front desk. I asked them if they have a pair of bolt cutters. Like I'm the complete idiot at the front of the store. It's 6:45 in the morning asking for bolt cutters. They have some. Follow the guy back into the men's locker room. We just got to snap this lock off. I have to take a shower there. Like I'm getting ready for school there because I'm sweaty when I'm done. So he can't do it. He gets the bolt cutters. He like can't close them all the way. So he turns around to me and is like, "You want to take a run at it, man?" I was like, "Well." I was thinking in my head, if I want to leave this place, yes, I'm going to take a run at it. So, but I just worked out my chest. I was so sore. So I brace and I like every square inch of what I had left in me, which
Your
is
face
not
was
much,
turning
right?
red.
Oh, it was so bad. I snapped it. Sparks flew. I kind of felt like a champion right there. And I handed it back to him. He's like, "Yeah, you did look stronger than me." And in my head, I was like, "Yeah, man, what you know?" So got my stuff, took my shower, got out of there. So since I've now gotten a luggage lock with the little spinner numbers.
Yeah,
But here's the
that's
thing.
not, yeah.
I'm so old and the lighting is weird in there. I can't see the spinner numbers. It like
No
glares off.
way.
I'm at the wrong. It's so bad. I'm such an old man.
Where are your readers at? You got to start taking your
Oh,
readers
that's
with
with
you.
my contacts in. I don't know what's wrong with me. So,
That is hilarious. You know what? I have to be honest. If that happened to me on the first day, I probably wouldn't go back.
oh, I went back. I was like, who cares? I don't care anymore.
Not out of
But it's
embarrassment,
like,
frustration.
oh, oh,
Like,
okay.
really?
Yeah. That's where I'm good at that. I just told myself I was a complete moron. I'll never do that again. My negative self-talk, and I haven't so
Yeah.
far. I mean, it's day
It,
4, so
it
who
was
knows?
another reason to punish yourself to get back in the gym.
Yes, I love it. Can't wait.
That's
It
hilarious,
is
though.
hilarious. All right. So any stories from your little 4:40 a.m.? Man, what time are you
No,
going
I'm
to
so
bed?
tired. Not early enough. I need to be in bed by 9. Last night it was after 10 before I fell asleep. And so there's this, I won't get into all this, but there's this big sleep study that I listened to. I think I may have told you about it, this podcast, and just the importance of sleep, the value it adds to your life,
Huh.
and the amount of years.
Turns out.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
And so the
Sleep.
fact that I'm getting up early, it really isn't that great compared to the sleep that I need. So I'm trying to work to adjust that schedule. Not quite there yet.
Yeah, you'll get there. You'll get
I'll
there.
get there. I'll get
You'll
there.
get there. So today what we're going to talk about is I'll be open and honest on this podcast. This is one
Yes.
of the things I struggle with the most in my entire faith in Christianity. Now,
Oh.
like you, I'm not like wavering as a Christian. I'm not like Christianity, Buddhism.
Hmm.
That's not where I'm at, and I won't get there. But this is like a core central tenet of sometimes this sticks with me, and I like have a problem with this thing in
Yeah.
the Bible. And so I don't know. Maybe we can talk through it. I don't know if there'll be an answer today or not. It's. I essentially want to talk about God's anger in the
Hmm.
Bible, and this was really born out of your story that we went through about Elisha and the she bears
Yeah.
and the mauling of the kids. And we kind of talked through that. It wasn't like 6-year olds. They were like 16, 17, 18-year old. There's a whole group of, anyway, the way that story reads in the Bible, it is not as quote unquote bad as it plays out in real life. But I'm still like, God, why didn't you just chill out? They called him bald and those kids got mauled by a bear. And sometimes I just want to start here. Sometimes I just have an issue with the way that God directs, responds to, and shows his anger in the Bible. I have no idea what you think about this. Are you there? Are you somehow different than me? Where are you at with all this?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely, sometimes it feels questionable because it does feel like to me at times are these two different versions of God in the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yeah.
I feel like we see two different versions. And then to talk about how, God doesn't change and he's forever the same. And it's like, well, to me, that God of the Old Testament is kind of scary and merciless and um, just intense over
Hmm.
things that did not seem like that big of a deal. It's like establishing the rules were so important, almost more important than caring for the people. That's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, I think my issue with this comes from the fact that I, okay, I'll get angry like everybody else, like any
Sure.
other human being, obviously. But I really, I don't like to be angry. I don't like to be around other angry people. And frequently, when I see people display anger in public situations, I'm like, that is so embarrassing for you. Like, will you
Hmm.
calm down for a second? I realize there are times to be angry, and we'll talk about some of those today. But then when I'm thinking like that, that's kind of how I feel about human beings. And it's like sometimes I'm just like, take a chill pill, bro. Like take
Yeah.
it down a notch. Why are you so mad? And then I see the God that I love and pledge my allegiance to and worship. And sometimes I'm reading these Old Testament passages and occasionally the New Testament, if you go into
Yeah.
Revelation, I'm like, God, I mean, this is sacrilegious as all get out, but like, God, take a chill pill, man.
Yeah. I think we'll get into this a little bit more, but I do think his anger, I think we kind of misconstrue what he is displaying. Like when I felt like
Mm,
I'm looking into this, I don't feel like his anger is the same as our anger. I feel like our anger is um it's typically irrational and in response, like a quick response to something. And I feel like most of the time, I'd hope all the time that God's anger is not so much that.
mm.
It's not to be it's intentional and it's to point people towards something as opposed or to set a boundary as opposed to get back at somebody. And I feel like a lot of human nature, it's more to get back at somebody or to be the bigger dog or to show like how big and bad you are. It's reactive. Um,
Right.
so I feel like there's that level of difference.
Hmm.
But yes, I do agree with you. Sometimes it's like, what are you doing, God? But then it makes me question maybe we should have maybe not more anger, but should we model after that more?
Well, I think that's a great place to start. I think the place that we have to start, if we're going to dig into this, and I'm going to work through how I feel about this, and you're going to work through how you feel about this, is we just need to ask the fundamental question: is God allowed to be angry? And honestly, when I started kind of grappling with that issue and trying to figure out how I felt about that, I started thinking, ironically, about humans.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watch humans get angry, and I just described a second ago how a lot of times I'm like, whoa, just calm. It's not that, the return that you want to do at Walmart is not that big of a deal. Just calm down. Right.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking, okay, when is it okay for humans to be angry? When do I think that's allowable? And more than that, when do I think that's good? When do I
Mm-hmm.
think it's justifiable for a human being to get angry? And so there are times when love can come out as anger.
Sure.
And I'll give you a brief rundown of a time that happened in my life recently. Poor Madeline is just going to have to cover her ears on this one. She was making some decisions in her PE class that were leading to a drop in her grade. Now,
Mm-hmm.
she's a great student. She's had straight A's her entire high school so far, right? She does a great job. She's so
Yeah.
smart, and I think she's wonderful. But she was having a little game they were playing, wasn't necessarily participating. The PE grade was dropping. I had high speed come apart on her when I found out because I was like, this should be the easiest grade that you right. So
Yeah.
I was going through this and it was just really like this explosion from me. And in fact, on a weekend that I was supposed to sing, you asked me if my voice was okay. And I was like, well, we had some interesting conversations. Right? It was over this issue. Again, I love my daughter. She is wonderful. I know she's listening to this right now. I
Yeah.
love you, Mads. You're so smart.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what's happening there is I'm angry at that situation because I love and care about what she's doing. And to me, the decisions that she was making, although she is a wonderful person, we all have this, right? In those moments, you can make a bad decision. And so I'm angry at you because I love you, because I expect more out of you. I think now you may just tell me right now in this podcast that how I reacted was not justifiable.
No, no,
But
no.
I think those times when you're angry because you love someone, that can be a justifiable place to have anger.
I think so too. And I think when someone crosses a boundary, I think um I think that we have to be able to set boundaries. And when people cross those boundaries, I think it's normal for anger to come out.
Mm,
But the Bible, and I wish I would have researched this scripture before it when it talks about being angry but sinning not.
hmm.
So there is a level of that. There is
Yeah.
anger is not a bad response or emotion because I think anger is a response to somebody again crossing boundaries or doing
Yes.
something that makes you uncomfortable or doesn't align with again the boundaries that you've set. And so I think it's okay to have that anger, but it's all about the response. Again, though Jesus flipped the tables when he
He
was
did. He
angry.
did. He did.
I think we've talked about that. I think he was trying to make a statement because
Sure.
of what was happening. But I do think there would have been instances if he had done that in his home with his mom. I think that would have been
Mm.
sinful.
Well, the other place that seems not only like quote unquote allowable for humans to be angry, but that we encourage it is when someone's being mistreated. And that
Mm,
this kind of connects to your point about Jesus flipping the tables. And we'll do this like, I mean, there's so easy historical examples like the Nazis make people angry
hmm
and segregation makes people angry. And like you get that feeling in you. And we even got the terminology, like a righteous anger, that you were angry at evil, you were angry at something is wrong. And we really appreciate that when people stand up and say the hard thing. You know what I mean? You just imagine like a movie, like a big speech in a movie, and everybody's like, yeah, yeah, like really appreciates that person for saying that. And so I'm like, okay, well, if there are these places where I think it's good for people to be angry, then this is stupid, but yes, obviously God is allowed to be angry at certain situations when he is acting in love or he is acting against evil, right? Those are places that we
hmm
want God to be angry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do start to think in that though, and I go back to people a little bit here, but we're supposed to be a reflection of Jesus. I do think that there are times that we stand up with righteous anger and it is still not right. And I think it's the
Okay.
way that we approach it. And I think that that goes along with God. I think like this is a big thing. This is a big thing to me. There are things that we stand for as a church and as a congregation, and we will post it all over social media, which again,
Sure.
I mean, when it comes, and I'm just going to be honest and real on here, when it comes to things like Black Lives Matter and like, I am going to be the first to post about that. And I don't like to post a lot of things, but that to me is not a political issue. It's a human issue.
Sure.
And we can do all of those things, and that's great. But if you're somebody that's constantly posting this righteous anger thing, these things on Facebook, but you're not giving your money to it, or you're not doing the things to make the change, I don't think that's righteous anger anymore. I think that's just to cause division. And I feel like that's the difference with God there is his it may I don't know, may the Baldy thing, I guess he was trying to establish
Yeah.
something. It
Yeah.
just feels crazy, but I don't feel like he was just mad because his prophet was being quote unquote bullied.
Hmm.
He was clearly okay with that a lot of times in the New Testament when people were being bullied and persecuted throughout the New Testament. He didn't send a bear in then. So
Yeah.
I think it's when he's trying to establish something, trying to say, oh,
Okay.
this is what we're doing, this is what we're changing. And so again, I think with humans, it's the same thing. We can speak our piece and stand up for stuff, but what are we
Sure.
doing outside of just saying it?
Sure. What's our covenant? What are we standing for? What are we defending? Yeah, those types of things.
Yeah,
Well, let's get some examples here. I don't have a specific
sure.
scripture that I want to do, but I asked both of us. Why don't you go first? Will you give me a spot in the Bible that you think that I just can't believe the crazy way that I'm phrasing this. You think God's anger makes sense.
Yeah, I
You
think
see it, you get it, you support it, you know what I mean?
yeah, I think one of the examples is and this is seen multiple times in the Old Testament, but in Numbers 11, you see that Israel's complaining again about God sending them meat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's lots of it.
A
Um,
lot
a
of quail on the
lot of
ground.
it.
Yeah.
And so again, they're asking to go back to where God pulled them out of.
Right.
And so the human part of me is like, why are you not appreciative of what I've given you? You know? But then sometimes I think, well, God, you're God. Like, can't you just put up with a little complaining?
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes
Aren't
I
you
feel that
strong
way
enough to take it? Yeah. Yeah.
to take it.
Yeah.
But he ends up he strikes them with a severe plague, and then he buries those who desired food from Egypt, and that's what I have is buried instead of manna. So they get a plague and they die. Um, that's intense because
It
they were
is.
complaining, but I don't know, they were maybe he's setting this idea of okay, if you want to go back,
But that's a spot where it
whatever.
makes sense to you. You
It
you read
does.
that story and you're like, okay, I see what God
Seems a
is
little
getting at.
extreme, but I get why he was mad.
Yes, it's like they're questioning the very covenant and the provision of God after they've already been provided for, right?
Oh yeah, and after they got what they wanted. They wanted to be pulled out of Egypt. And after all of that happened, this God, and I guess this is a thing, this God that performed all of these miracles, thing after thing after thing after thing, and then you're complaining about the miracle he's still providing you. And so that to me is justified. I also had the example of flipping the tables. Again, I
Hmm.
go back to that one all the time. Um, they were using God's name to exploit the poor, and I think God doesn't put up with that.
Yeah. I'm really similar to you in these spots in the Bible where I read about God's anger, and I'm like, okay, yes, yes,
Yeah.
get him. You know, one is the golden calf.
Yeah.
You know, he has, and it's all in this Egypt story, but he's delivered them. The Red Sea has been parted. Moses is literally up on the top of a mountain that is thundering and lightning with God's presence, receiving the Ten Commandments. And these doofuses are down there dancing naked around a golden calf that they've made because they can't
Yeah.
have not Moses for more than 40 days and just go somewhere else. And
It's
so God,
insane.
God up at the top of the mountain tells Moses, get out of the way. I'm done with these people. I'll just make a nation out of you. And when I read that part of that story, I'm like, you know what? That makes sense to me. What were those people down
What were
there
they
doing?
thinking? What were
Yes,
they thinking?
exactly. Right. And if you want to go New Testament with me, I think that Jesus frequently gets angry at the Pharisees in the New
Okay.
Testament.
That's a great
Yes,
example.
and we've been doing this at church with Mark. Kind of Jesus will go back and forth with the Pharisees, and I'm like, you know what? The Pharisees deserve everything that Jesus is dishing out to them because they're missing the point. They're exploiting people like you're suggesting, and so those types of anger where God is defending the covenant or God is defending the down and out and the weak, I'm like, yeah, I got, you know what I mean? Like I'm clapping my hands, I'm up on my
Yeah.
feet the first thing. But how about we flip it into the Bible? Where do you go where you're like, oh God, why'd you get so? It just God's anger doesn't sit as well with you. Where is that for you in the Bible?
Okay, so I think you pronounce his name Uzzah.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Touch when he touches the ark,
Yep.
in Second Samuel. Again, it's one of these examples of somebody I feel like trying to do the right thing, and it's it, it's he the most extreme thing happens to him. So the oxen they get unstable. The ark of the covenant starts to fall,
Yep.
and so Uzzah reaches out to touch it to catch it so it doesn't fall. And to me, I bet this was a quick thing. He sees it falling. Oh my gosh, reaches down and he touches it and he dies. I'm like, what was the point in that?
Mhm.
Why would you do that or have such an extreme reaction to that? So that was one that bothered me. And then also I really don't like the one with Moses and the rock. And I know we can say he didn't obey, but Moses was under a lot of stress, first of all, and he was told to speak to the rock and he struck it instead. It's kind of close.
It
Like,
feels, yeah, it feels like a minor thing. I know what you mean.
yeah, and he wasn't allowed then because of that. You will not bring the assembly into the land I have given you. Because of that, this guy
Hmm.
did all this other stuff. And so that to me feels very, very extreme.
Hmm. Okay, so for me in the New Testament, the Ananias and Sapphira story,
Yeah, yeah,
they sold the land and held back
yeah,
part of the money and were keeping part of the money for themselves and then they said they brought the whole thing to the church and Peter's like, well, this is on you, and they just both fell down dead. And now let me say, defrauding God and lying about what you're doing is not a good thing at
yeah,
all, like not remotely, but they got to die for that.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, how many lies have I told in the last week? I mean, probably not like an extraordinary amount, but
sure.
I guarantee you I've lied in the last week. I just got die. Granted, I did not lie directly to the head of the church about something that I had done for God. I realize the severity of that, but I'm just like, man, what? That's your life, you know?
I know. It just feels so extreme.
Well, speaking of extreme, let me keep us in the New Testament then. This is probably the root of where this comes from. Sometimes I struggle with hell, that hell
Hmm.
is this eternal punishment torture chamber for people who sin, for people who are not in right relationship with God. And there, I'll be honest with you, there is part of me that is like, really, God, you're going to torture a human being forever, forever and ever and ever with no end to it in sight. And I'm like, God, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, is that fair?
Yeah. Y- Okay. Open and honest and transparent. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it feels really extreme. Now, I got to ask this. Are there parts of you that wonder if part of that is figurative, that not that hell is not, because sometimes I wonder if hell is more of the absence of God, which to me is worse than gnashing of teeth because we don't know what the absence of God looks like.
Sure. Yep.
And so sometimes I do wonder if this idea of hell is not so much you know not saying it's not fire and maybe it is all that, but sometimes I do wonder if it's more figurative and that
Hmm.
the punishment is truly the absence of God, which again is something that we don't even know as humans.
Well, here's what I do with it, and this is going to lead into what you just said. And I'm a weirdo, and I think about stuff like this, and this is how I cope with it. I think like, okay, Adolf Hitler.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks that's a bad dude. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Deserves punishment, should not be in heaven, all the 9 yards. Then I start thinking to myself, okay, Adolf Hitler did some of the worst stuff, ordered some of the worst stuff any human being has ever ordered on the history of the
Hmm.
face of the planet.
Hmm.
Does Adolf Hitler deserve to be eternally punished for the life he lived as a human being? And again, open and honest, there are times, and my God, I'm not a Nazi, right? But there are times when I think, I don't know if even Hitler, it's the eternal nature of it. And I think if we dig down into the next level, because what I really have to start doing is I have to start asking myself the question, like, why does this bother me? I
Yeah.
understand there's the anger, and you've talked nicely about some of the reasons why God may be angry, but what is it about Matt? Why does this bother me? And I think one of the key indicators for me in this discussion is it feels disproportionate because we
Yeah.
are humans and we are mortal and we are weak. And I just went to the gym yesterday and I can't stand up after I sit down, right? Like I'm weak. I'm not going to live forever. And God is this eternal, immortal, glorious, all-powerful being, and he can do whatever he wants with me. And it feels like there is such a disproportion in power. And then for sometimes for me to think, God, you're going to eternally punish somebody. There's something about that that just sticks with me sometimes.
Yeah. And the idea that the person that doesn't accept Jesus but lives a very good life would be stuck in the same situation that somebody like Hitler would be stuck in. And
Mm.
I know all sin is the same, but it still feels disproportionate. And so it feels a little frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, what's the answer to that? The fact that it is so disproportionate. I guess the other side of that coin is God's salvation is also so disproportionate because what he
Yeah,
is
it's a good
allowing
point.
us to happen, what he is giving to us is so wonderful, right? That the flip side of that is horrific. But why does there have to be a flip side of it?
Again, I just go back to the idea that I don't know why I'm going back to this idea, but that I don't know if I think hell is truly the burning brimstone.
Okay.
I think it's figurative. Do I think that it would be
You're
there?
not
Okay.
signing up to go. You're not in the line
No,
to
but
go.
I
Yeah.
have to be honest. Like, you think about people that struggle with depression and struggle with true mental illness,
Mm.
and the idea of that being here on earth with that is sometimes worse than the idea of going to hell or whatever it may be, or getting out of what they're living right now. And this idea of being away from God seems worse than the forever gnashing of teeth.
Mm.
And maybe that's just in my own head. Maybe again, I'm just trying to justify that because it feels, like you said, so disproportionate. It feels so,
I was going to ask you if that's what you were doing, that you're
it could
trying to
be.
like you're trying to morph what it is in your head. And I'm not suggesting that your ideas are not also in the Bible because I think they are, but you're
Yeah.
trying to like blunt the impact of how bad
Hmm.
that is so that you can rationalize and deal with the fact that the same God who loves you is also going to punish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of, it like, I just remember, growing up in this, you always have, and I don't really fully believe the way I did, obviously, at like 10 years old, but like the idea that what if I accidentally sinned, or I sinned and then God came back 2 minutes later and I didn't have the chance to
Yes.
say I was sorry.
Yes. Yes.
I don't believe that anymore. I believe that God knows your heart.
Okay.
And I think that I just don't think it, and this is not just a me justifying thing. It does not make sense if I tell a white lie and then God comes back in two
And you
minutes.
have to go to hell forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does not make any sense whatsoever to me. Um, and so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think
This is the least certain we've ever been on this podcast ever on an
I
episode.
know, I know. I do think that again, that God's anger is directed at restoration. I think
Okay.
that his anger is meant to restore and to gain order and to bring boundaries. Um, I do think sometimes it's at the expense of certain people, and some people it's just unfortunate. Like, you look at these
Yeah.
people in the Bible that just would die.
Yeah.
And
But
I don't
like you
know.
said, God judges the heart. He's not doing it indiscriminately. There's a reason for God. God's not just quote unquote waking up on the wrong side of the bed and just striking people because he can. That's not what
No.
he's doing. Sometimes, like I've said today, sometimes it feels like a disproportionate response to me. But ultimately, I mean, this is my answer going to be at the end of this episode is ultimately, I just have to trust. And if I feel uncomfortable about it, I just have to feel uncomfortable about it. I just have to trust that God is just, that he is doing the
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
thing. Right. And I think there are going to be times when this whole episode is about my humanity rebelling against this part of God that I don't like as much. But I think that's just part of being a human and also being a Christian. Sometimes you just have to bow the knee to God because he is God and I am not. So
Which
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No, no.
well, that is why I think sometimes there was pushback when we were younger about going to college and getting furthering your education,
Mm,
because these kinds of questions would come up, and it is easy whenever you're and not like we're more intellectual, but when you really start to dive into some of this, it is hard to make sense of some of it. And I do think you have to come to a point in your relationship with God, like you're saying, where you just accept the fact that God is God and he is just. And that's a part of just leaning on him. And if I'm doing what I know is right, I have to trust that everything else is going to fall into place, no matter what that looks like. If that is gnashing of teeth, if that is anger in certain areas of my life because I made a certain mistake, I will say I don't feel that we see God's anger now like they did in the Bible
sure.
times. And maybe
It's different.
I yeah, I mean maybe it is happening, and like I would never tell somebody that that happened in your life because of something that you did. Well, okay,
Yes.
that's not hold on, that's not entirely true.
Okay.
If you are I'm using extreme example because
Sure,
there's some
sure, sure.
examples of like this in my life, but if you are bringing heavy drugs into your home and doing those sort of things in your home and your children get taken away, that is in response to something that you did. I don't think that's God's
It's like
anger coming
reaping
out,
and sowing, kind of.
reaping
Yeah.
and sowing.
Yeah.
But I don't think we see this setting of boundaries the same way now that God did before.
I agree. And I want to bring up another point, but we're going to return to that issue. The other hinge point for me when I started really thinking about like, why is it? Why does this bother me? Why does God's anger bother me? And it comes from the fact that I cringe so hard when skeptics of God bring up these points.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it is very easy to cherry pick these examples and you can take them out of context. And the more you take them out of context, it's really sometimes the worse these fits seem. It's
Yeah.
real easy for someone who doesn't believe or trust and love God. Somebody will probably do this on TikTok when I post this clip right now, right?
Yeah.
Is they'll be like, well, God's such a sissy baby, crybaby, wham wham, and I'm just like, ugh. Like I cringe so hard at that because I feel this need to protect God's image.
Yes.
I don't need to do that. I'm not going to pick up my shield like you do all the time, but I don't need to do that. But I have that like natural instinct to, I want people to be attracted to God because I think it's good for them to be in a relationship with God. And then when skeptics bring up some of these issues, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks really bad. Like
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
hard for people to accept that. And it bothers me so bad.
Yeah. I have two thoughts about that. One
Okay.
is there was one time I was questioning something similar, and I may have said this on here, but my husband said to me, like, Hannah, that's the point of faith, though. There are things
Mm,
about God that are not going to make sense, but that's why we live by faith. You can't justify everything. You can't point to this is why this is this way and this is why this is that way, because that's the point of faith. And I found that really important in my life. But I also think about the parables that Jesus told. And I've been listening to some stuff on the parables and how lots of times they didn't make sense to the people that were listening. And he would go
true.
back with the disciples and ask them what they meant. And sometimes he would give an explanation for it. But I think it's the same way with the rest of the word of God. There are things that are taking place in the word of God, and those people where the word goes out and it lands on bad ground, those are the people that come out and are saying things like, well, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't work, without the knowledge of who God is and what he was trying to establish in that anger. So I think it goes
Mm,
back to that root of the parable. Not all of this is it's meant for everybody, but it's not meant for everybody.
yeah. Yeah. I like that explanation a lot. So does this mean that faith allows you to sometimes say, I just don't know what to do with this one.
Yes.
I'm just not sure what to do here, but I just have to trust. I mean, that is literally faith, right? Faith
Yeah.
is not always believing. Faith is sometimes blind, and sometimes you
Yes.
close your eyes to something you don't understand, and you go along with the thing that you believe in anyway. Is
Yeah.
that ignorance or is that
No,
faith?
I think it's faith because truthfully, at the end of the day, ooh, be ready beyond Sundays.
Oh,
We don't we don't know what happens after we die.
true.
None of us have seen it. None of us, not, and I can say what I've experienced. I can say what I've felt. I can say, what I've seen in church and what I believe is true. But at the end of the day, this is all faith. So if you're questioning things and if there are parts of the Bible that don't make sense, I encourage you to research it and look into it. But I believe a part of living for God is, again, coming to that point where you say, you know what, this doesn't make sense, but I choose to believe it anyway. And
Mhm.
that is living by faith.
Well, let's end with good news then,
Yeah.
because and you brought this up earlier. I think the good news in this equation and what has changed it is Jesus.
Yeah.
And there are a number of scriptures in the New Testament that point to the fact that Jesus absorbs some of that anger of God and some of that punishment of God. That in addition to dying and in addition to resurrecting and in addition to healing and in addition to all the other things that he does, part of literally the job of Jesus is to absorb some of this punishment and this anger, especially for people, or maybe exclusively for people who are in right relationship with Jesus, that anger and that judgment, that punishment is absorbed by Jesus on the cross so that we do not have to take it. And I think you hinted at it earlier that what we don't see displays of God's anger now as they did in the Old Testament. Well, the difference is Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a path now. There's a path
Right.
now to heaven as opposed to setting these boundaries of what's right and wrong. I think a lot of that Old Testament was just setting up boundaries of what we do and what we don't do. This is how we live. This is what's expected. And then you get to the New Testament and those boundaries should be set. You've got to have rule. There are rules. Like you have to have that. But then you come to a point with Jesus where you have mercy and grace and you can just walk in truth. It's not all this anger anymore.
But Jesus is God. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like
It is. Yeah.
those scriptures that say that he's blunting us from the punishment and the judgment of God. I see that and I understand that. I know why that's in the Bible. But then there's part of me that's like, yeah, but Jesus is God. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like there could just be a different decision there. And so I don't know. I don't really have a point to that, just to say that sometimes that confuses me.
Hmm.
Why was it necessary for Jesus to come and blunt some of that? Why wasn't that just offered to people all the way through? Why did there ever have to be another way? And again, this is where you probably at some point you just come back to, yeah, I don't know what to do with that one. But
Yeah. I think some of it's just bigger than we are. It's
yeah.
bigger than what our minds can understand. And I do find so much peace in that. And
Mm.
I find that for me, I feel like that has grown and established my faith more because I can say, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but I know what I've experienced in him and I trust him. And so I feel like that's been pivotal for me.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. This is probably always going to be an issue and a thing that I just always have to grapple with.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if you are a human and you are a Christian, which that's all we know of, we don't know of any goats that are Christians or
No,
aliens that
no,
are
we don't.
Christians.
My
Yes, there
cats,
could be.
maybe.
Have no idea. Probably
Yeah.
not. Your cats are definitely Satan's spawn. Never mind. Sorry. Right. But if you are a human and you are a Christian, here's a guarantee. There is some facet of God's character that is going to make you feel uncomfortable or make you question sometimes. And
Hmm.
I think I kind of take comfort in the fact that the the fact that I am questioning is part of what makes me a human. It doesn't mean that I question myself out of my relationship with God. That's the wrong response to it. But I think the right response to it is you're going to have questions. You have to have questions. You're a
Yeah.
human being. And so what you do with those questions is you sit with them and you pray with them and you look into the Bible, you dig deeply into the Bible. But if you can't find an answer that satisfies you, you just have to, that's literally where you throw up your hands and say, okay, God, I submit my will to yours.
Which
And
is what it's all about.
it is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This may be a thing for me that I can't reason my way out of, and I can't feel good about it all the time, but that I just have to humble myself and say, okay, God, this is your, man, I'm so glad that you said that. It makes me feel so much better about myself now. I really feel, I genuinely feel kind of bad the way I feel about this sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, is there something wrong with me?
No.
Am I questioning God? Is God not like, am I not making a connection? You know what I'm saying though? Like it feels wrong for me to question
There's
God like
so
this.
much in the word of God that I do that with, especially with like the different entities. And like, I've had to really come to this idea that there's so much about the spiritual realm I'm not meant to understand. There's so much about God I'm not meant to understand. And we
That
can dive
frustrates me
deep.
so bad.
It does. It is. It's so frustrating. But I just think our minds cannot comprehend because we don't live in the spirit. We're not there yet. And at
Yeah.
some point we will have that realization and it will all make sense. We're just not there.
All right, community, we're calling on you. This is an interesting topic for me. I think for Hannah too.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm always comfortable with. And maybe there are people out there in our community that this is not really a thing that you get hung up on or bothers you. Would you share with us beyondsundayspod@gmail.com? Tell us how you're thinking about this. Or conversely, if this is a subject, a topic that you do find that you struggle with, will you share your thoughts and feelings with us too? We would love to read those. We could respond. We'd love to correspond back and forth because I think part of what it means to be in a community, I know it's always Hannah and I on the mics, but part of what it means to be a community is you find other people who struggle with what you struggle with and you help each other. You lift each other and you carry each other's burdens. That's biblical. So here I am. I'm not always the person behind the mic with the answers. This is something that is difficult for me. So please reach out to us. Let us know what you're thinking. We'll read every comment. We respond to everything, and we would love to do that. We also, as always, want to thank you for joining us today. We always enjoy going beyond Sundays, even when there's not a good answer at the end of the episode. And we hope that you enjoyed our conversation today. If you have any thoughts or comments about God's anger or anything else, please reach out to us. Go to beyondsundayspod.com for our show links and socials. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.